Zulu Aviation is a smaller school out of Abbotsford that seems relatively new, but from what I hear, it's making some very interesting strides forward in terms of innovation of flight training. Let's talk about it. Hello my friends, welcome back to Late Departure. I'm Adam, and as many of you know who follow this channel, I am someone who wants to become a commercial pilot, so I'm looking all over the place to find the right flight school. And while I have found a good flight school for me already, at the request of a lot of you, I've continued to talk with some flight schools. And also I personally am interested as well, because after I do my training at Pacific Rim, I might be doing some of my later ratings somewhere else. So I'm always on the lookout for some schools and always trying to listen to some students and find out where the good schools are at. So I originally heard from Zulu when I talked on the Facebook BC General Aviation group and also in the Canadian Student Pilots group on Facebook. And initially, some of the managers reached out to me saying, hey, you should come to Zulu. And I asked them if they could introduce me to some students, but I didn't get any response back from them, unfortunately. However, a while later, I was able to come across some students at Zulu, and some of them have invited me to go out there as well to go and see what their training looks like, which is very cool. But a bunch of them sat down with me and talked to me about their experiences, and overall it sounds like a really great experience. So one of the students was saying that every day they come in to Zulu Aviation, they tell the management, thank you for such a wonderful experience, which sounds really good. And I think that's amazing. Like the student that I talked to, that particular student, was extremely happy with their training experience, and Zulu Aviation was exactly what they were looking for. And we'll talk a little bit more about why that was. Now, as we get into the plane and instructor availability, we come to probably one of the biggest selling points at Zulu Aviation, which is that you can book your flights in block time. So this is, in a way, a kind of deposit. And of course, whenever you do a deposit, there's always a risk that, something might happen to the school or something like that. But on the other hand, of course, block time is very common in the aviation industry. So you can actually go online and you can search for block time. And what will happen, basically what block time means is you book a larger period of time for flying on a certain plane, and you get kind of a bulk discount on your hours. Now, as far as I've found so far, in Vancouver, Zulu Aviation is one of the only schools that does this. And they have some pretty good rates. So their rate on the 152 is $70 an hour dry, which I'm pretty new to aviation, but from what I've gathered, it means it would probably cost somewhere around $90 to $100 an hour wet rate, which is still probably at least $50 to $80 cheaper than almost every other school. Now, again, you have to buy block time, which means you have to deposit a bunch of money to get all of these hours ahead of time. However, again, that's a lot of money saved over time. That's if you look at like 50 hours times, let's say on average, like $70 or $60 saved. I can't do the quick math right now, but that's quite a lot, many hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars that you save over the course of that block of training. And then of course the 172, I believe is a bit more. I think it's something like $90 an hour dry. Again, still works out to a lot cheaper than a lot of the other schools if you buy into the block time. Now that being said, they have relatively few planes at Zulu. According to the students I talked with recently, they only have one 172 and one 152. This is similar to the case at Island Coastal. Because it's a fairly new school, right now there aren't that many students booking. So the students I talked with said that they were able to get bookings sometimes on the day of, the next day. They were having no trouble getting bookings. So this is one of those unique moments where if you get in now, if you can get in early enough, you would be able to basically do your flight training a lot more efficiently, especially if you're a full-time flight student and you want to get it done as quickly as possible. Going to a new school like this, well, it can be a risk, of course, like with any new company, but at the same time, this risk could have the highest payout in terms of you being able to finish faster, get all your stuff done. Now, the instructor price, according to the students, was another $65 on top of the plane rental, which is fairly standard. I think it's about that for most of the companies. So this isn't anything out of the ordinary. But the biggest thing for me is that the students were saying that the instructors really, really care. And again, this is kind of the small school mentality. I found that a lot of the small schools just have a lot of care for their students. They're very family kind of oriented environments. Like we talked about, Glacier Air, Island Coastal Aviation is like that. Pacific Rim has that kind of feeling as well. Just sort of those smaller schools, because there are less people there sometimes, and also because, the management really wants to build their business. They're going the extra mile for their students, and that's great. I think if that is currently the situation and it continues like that, that sounds wonderful for Zulu Aviation. In terms of mandatory textbook or supply purchases, the students said that they do have those things there, but you can just bring in your own materials. So all the students I talked with actually came from other schools. So they went to Zulu from another school and they had the stuff already, and Zulu Aviation's management had no problem with them bringing their stuff, which I always think is a very good thing. It shows flexibility and consideration on part of the school. In terms of forcing students to do extra ratings or anything like that, the students said that wasn't the case at all, that they were actually just very accommodating. They didn't try to force anything, but at the same time, the management and the instructors were knowledgeable and let the students know like what they could do potentially, but there was no forcing whatsoever. So do you need to pay up front, or is it pay as you go? And like I mentioned, it does have that sort of, it can be pay up front. I'm not sure if they do non-block time as well. They probably do. And maybe I'll find out more about that later, or maybe someone in the comments can answer that. But basically the block time seems to be their bigger selling feature as well. So while they do have that pay up front, again, it saves a lot of money. This isn't just a matter of paying up front for a training program. This is paying up front for a training program plus really, really significant discounts in your training. Some of the students even mentioned that with the training program, the management is very flexible. So if you want to do block time and you want to try to do that over a period of time, or if you're working a part-time job or you're doing something and you can afford this much or something like that. Apparently, if you can talk with the management, they're very open to having those discussions and trying to find the best way that you can still do your flying in a way that works for you. So I thought that was, I know it sounds corny, but it sounds touching, and I think it's really good that the management is willing to have that conversation, because a lot of places it's very black and white. If you can't do this or you can't do that, then go to another school kind of thing. But Zulu Aviation didn't give me that feeling when I talked to the students. There's also another thing, and I think it already expired, but Zulu Aviation had a promotion for some kind of scholarship. Unfortunately, it looks like it's over now, but if you go visit their website, you might find a scholarship, which I think it included ground school and a bunch of other things as well, just to help students get started. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled for that. And again, maybe someone at Zulu Aviation will make a comment about that in the comments below and let us know if there's going to be another promotion coming out sometime soon. In terms of overcharging or undercharging for ground time, the students said that it's just very standard. You're charged for the ground time that you use. They didn't say anything about like instructors being lenient or undercharging, but they also didn't say anything about overcharging. So it just seems like, they have a standard policy, and that's the ground time is charged for what you use, and that's just the way it is. But that, again, that's pretty standard at a lot of schools. In terms of promising flight instructor jobs upon completing the program, no one mentioned anything like that. They didn't try to get people in the door by promising any jobs or anything like that there. So that's a good thing. In terms of maintenance, the students said that the school is very strict about maintaining the maintenance standards that, they, as most schools do, make you go through like in the journey log and make sure that you're aware of when the next inspection is coming up and things like that. And the students said that it's fairly transparent when it comes to being able to see the maintenance logs and all of that. One of the students mentioned that upon going for a cross-country flight or something, their cross-country flight would have meant that it would go beyond the next inspection period. So it would have gone beyond the hours until the next inspection. And so they didn't let that happen. And that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing that they're not just saying, oh yeah, go ahead, go on your cross country, even though maintenance is expired or something, which, I've heard stories of other places where that happened. It's great if it doesn't, because that is very unsafe, and that would make me really unsafe if I was renting a plane there. Now, in terms of weather limits or weather minima that are imposed by the school, the students said that they do enforce the standard weather limits. However, with the instructors, they say on occasion they do push some of the weather minima just a little bit, just for the students to get a challenge. And so, again, this is something some of the students were saying. I'm not sure if they really did push the weather minima, but if they do, I also see this in, you could look at it in a bad way and say, oh, well, that's dangerous. But there's also the good way in that when you're actually flying a plane, the weather is going to change like crazy. And if you are always sheltered and you don't know and you're not prepared to fly in some really serious weather that, you may have been stopped from doing so in the past by your flight school, then that can be pretty dangerous. So on the other hand, I prefer having the flexibility to be able to go out and like these students mentioned, going out and being able to push the limit sometimes just a bit so that you're able to become more familiar with what it feels like to be in that weather so that you're better prepared in the future. In terms of just showing the show pony aircraft, the students say that wasn't the case. Of course, they only have a few airplanes, so it's not likely that they'd have like one really great show pony to show anyways. But that being said, the students said that the aircraft were super well maintained. They look really nice. They have nicer propellers than normal was one of the comments that a student made who came from another school. And that's wonderful. It's good to hear that everything is maintained and that you feel safe in the planes, because really that's one of the most important things. Now, here's something that I found was really innovative about Zulu Aviation that students mentioned. So in addition to just the planes themselves, and again, maybe some people can confirm this in the comments, but students were saying that every single aircraft has an iPad that comes with it, which has ForeFlight installed previously. And I thought this is just an amazing added value for the students, because ForeFlight, for those of you who don't know, it's an amazing app that allows students to plan flights. It helps them track their flights, track their progress, avoid dangerous things. It makes their life really, really easy, but it is quite expensive. So first you have to buy an iPad if you don't have one already. And then you have to pay, I think it's $150 or $170 something a year to get a subscription for it. And the fact that Zulu Aviation has this on all the planes and they're throwing it in, this is something I haven't seen anywhere else. None of the other schools have anything like this, as far as I've heard from the students. Some of them might, but they're welcome to let me know, and I'd be happy to update that. But this is something I haven't seen at any other school, and I think it is such great value added, because this is, saving you at least $160 a year, which, in terms of a flight that costs a couple $100 an hour, it might not sound like a lot of money, but really when you're learning to fly, every single penny counts. All of your money needs to be counted towards your flight training, right? In any case, I thought that was a really cool bonus. I'd love to go there and see this for myself, because it almost sounds too good to be true, but if it is true, that's really amazing. So good on you, Zulu Aviation. That's pretty cool innovation there. So I was talking more with one of the students from Zulu named Max, who was really awesome and told me a lot of great stuff about Zulu, and was also one of my main sources for this particular review. Some additional things that I didn't mention, one of them is that Zulu does allow you to record in your flights, which for me is a really big thing, because as you know, I want to record my experience and see how I do. And not only that, Zulu also has video capturing equipment there so that they can help you capture some of that video. And I'll show just a little bit of what that looks like from Max's recent flight. So there definitely are a lot of really cool things about flying over at Zulu Aviation, and definitely a very interesting place. And if you want to check out Max and his stuff is also down below, you can see how he's doing in his flying and really see what happens for a student at Zulu Aviation. So finally, and one of the most important things as always for me, is did they take the time to sit down with the students and help them map out their goals, help them kind of figure out how they can get from where they are to where they want to go in their aviation careers. And the students, again, they gave really glowing reviews here. So they were saying that the people, the management were super friendly, super nice. They took the time. And even when I was talking with some of the students, one of the students, I remember the student didn't know an answer to a question and asked one of the instructors there, and the instructor was right there and was helping him out and giving him advice and answering his questions right there on the spot. Like, they're just They seem to be just really friendly, really on the ball, just from even the ambient sound that I heard of what goes on at the Zulu Aviation School there. But overall, and it just sounds like it's a pretty good experience, and it sounds like a place that, you know, especially if I was someone coming into this full time and I hadn't made the decision I'd already made, and had Abbotsford been a bit closer to where I am, because it's another kind of a haul for me to get all the way out to Abbotsford. I think total, if I had to go out to Abbotsford to commute, it might take me about more than 3 hours, depending on traffic, to get all the way out there and back, which is a large chunk of the day. That's time that I would like to be spending studying. That being said, I'm going to Pitt Meadows, which is already 2 hours commute out of my way there. So that being said, though, I would say it's definitely up there on my list. Maybe when I'm time building for my commercial pilot's license, I'll head out there, because again, the rates are very good. If the planes are available and the people are super friendly, and they have ForeFlight on iPads on the planes, I'd be totally down for that. I think that's a great idea. And, you know, from out of nowhere, really, Zulu Aviation came, and I'd say it's near the top of my list now, just from what I've heard here. And I'm excited to learning more about it as well. So like I said, if they want to invite me out to give me a tour of the school or something like that, I'd be more than happy, because, you know, it sounds outstanding what they're doing there, and I'd love to learn more about it. Now, that being said, of course, I always strive to be as objective as possible to give everyone a clear idea just of what the school is like based on the students' opinions. And well, I'd say most of all the opinions have been very, very positive about Zulu Aviation. One slightly negative thing that I have heard just from students, mostly students who have gone there who haven't actually trained there, but ones who went there to inquire about it. Some of them have said that just their first impression was that things are a little bit disorganized, or maybe it's just a little bit too busy. So for example, they're saying that it just seems like Zulu has a lot on their plate. And so, you know, having students on the go, apparently they're trying to start up like some air taxi and some other sort of things as well, which of course, you know, that's fairly standard for any flight school. So understandably, for any school that is fairly new, I think, again, it's not just Zulu, but any school that's fairly new, you know, they're trying their best to build their fleet, to get their operations going and things like that. So while you have that great availability and you have, you know, it sounds like really wonderful people working there and really interesting opportunities with the block time, at the same time, remember, they are a new school, so they're trying to get into the flow of things. They're trying to just sort of get things started. And so that might mean that it might not be as smooth as some of the bigger schools, but, you know, it's really hard to compare that way. But again, just to give you an idea of what some people have sort of thought when they went there, you'd have to go in person really to find out for yourself. So that's it for this video here. Just in summary, you know, right now seems like a really good time to go to Zulu, just because they don't have a lot of people, but summer is coming here, and I know they are advertising for their school here and there. So, you know, they will be getting students, and if you don't get in soon, then you might not be able to enjoy the very open booking schedule that they have now. And that's something that's really important for flight trainees. But who knows, you know, if their management is doing as well as it sounds they're doing, they might be getting more planes in. They might be able to keep up with the demand so that they can keep the schedule and keep the service going as well as they are. So that's it for today. I hope all of you are having a wonderful, beautiful day. You can see here once again at the Vancouver airport, not many planes taking off or landing, unfortunately. You know, it's still, the aviation industry hasn't quite recovered yet, but it is slowly and surely, so I'm looking forward to that. So stay healthy and happy. If you're flying, have fun, fly your best. As always, thank you for joining me on my late departure. I look forward to having you all continue with me on my journey here. And remember, it's never too late. See you next time.